Hello, welcome. My name is Jen. I'm the Vice President of U.S. Development with Join Mayshad interview with our founder and CEO, Nezha Alaoui. Before I bring Nessa on, please make sure to log in your questions in the chat field with us today. We'll do a Q&A at the end. And Nessa is here to share her story and her inspiration and the reason why we do what we do each and every day. Mayshad Choice is an ecosystem of brands for women by women, supporting and championing equity for women by connecting them to each other and to the companies, causes, and organizations that support equity for women professionally and personally. Thank you again. Please make sure to visit us at joinmayshad.com, where you too can learn more about how you can become a member and join us each and every day for the enriching.
Thank you for listening today.
So we're so excited to be interviewing you because you bring so much enrichment to our lives. And Nezha, usually it's you and I on the other side of the table together interviewing highly accomplished women and men that support women in the workplace. And today we actually get to do a fireside chat with you. So we're really excited about hearing your words of wisdom and what inspires you each and every day, particularly as we're living through this very special moment in time together.
Thank you, Jen. I must say that I had not thought of this version of the concept before. I thought of many concepts where we're interviewing several women together or me alone or a one-to-one, but not me being interviewed by my team. So it's really
This will be fun. Nessa, you know, it's interesting because right now we talk a lot with women who are reinventing and staying fresh and relevant and current in this moment in time. So for the millions of women who have been laid off or furloughed or just using this time to take a step back and really reflect upon who they are, what they mean to themselves and what they mean to the world around them. And you're so skilled as a serial entrepreneur in reinventing and staying fresh and relevant and current. Talk to us about your journey. What have you experienced for yourself during the various very successful entrepreneurial ventures that you've launched and grown and scaled?
Well, I think that for my end, I have chosen to keep producing products and services for other women that would relate to how I see life and the solutions that I found for myself in life. So when you do choose to serve others like you're serving yourself, it does help in product development. It does help, you know who are the women that you're talking to and what they're going through. And the concept of the Mayshad woman is something that I gave birth to in 2014 because from 2011 to 2014, I was speaking to the other women out there that had that character of differentiation. You know, it's back then, I think the empowerment was not as strong as it is right now, but you still had some women, few women, unfortunately fewer than what we would have liked to hear in numbers and quotas and data. But you had those few women that were out there struggling, being positive, waking up every day and trying to make it happen for themselves, their family, and others. And so when I said, you know, like, it's not, there is that Mayshad woman. Mayshad woman is not just me. They are out there. I met them. They're real. And so that's how it went, and it took an entire other dimension.
And as you started your career as a photographer working with the UN, talk to us about that. And that must have been so inspiring, traveling the world and going on different missions and really capturing the essence and the soul of your subjects. And how has that impacted the work that you do with your foundation, with the work that you do now empowering women, and just, you know, honestly, from an artistic, a stylistic approach, everything that we do at Mayshad is so on point and so on brand, but from a very authentic, genuine, caring way that it ripples across everything that we do on a daily basis. So we'd love to get your insights on how photography has really inspired the work that you do.
Sure. So, Jan, I started my entrepreneurial journey at the age of 24, and so it was before the photography. From 24 to 27, I developed 12 stores in Morocco, and it was U.S. brands that everyone must know: Steve Madden, Carter's, Oshkosh. That I exported to Morocco, and I was representing the brand there with a vision to develop across North Africa. And then, so there wasn't an artistic part of it in the business development side, the artistic part of choosing collections, developing stores, designing the stores that I loved. But then at some point, it just got to an entrepreneurial journey that became a business, a flourishing business. And that's when I decided to stop that part, reevaluate my initial values, which was always wanted to do humanitarian projects for the United Nations, and then get back into becoming an entrepreneur, but with those values embedded in what I was gonna build after. So that's when I became a photographer. And the story on how I became a photographer, it was more that I wanted to do something for the United Nations, and I was already a mother of two, and I was already a successful entrepreneur, and I decided, I made that I had the courage to kind of like stop, downgrade myself, look at my backpack and see what skills do I have that can get me to that childhood dream. And it was photography. And so then I started negotiating my contracts with the United Nations and training myself at the same time, because even though I was 27, I was already a mother and entrepreneur. So I had that maturity to say, okay, if I'm selling them that I'm going to take picture for them, well, I can do it. And I had the confidence to train myself. I can make it happen. So I was on a 6-month negotiation with them. And during that time, I was training myself to become more professional in my photography. So, of course, to answer your question, it was an amazing journey that opened my eyes on so many levels. Because as a photographer, you use one of your 5 senses, and when you decide to focus on one of the senses, it just, you develop it a little more, and you start. Now I see the world in images, and I'm walking in the streets and I'm seeing colors and shapes and design, and it took me after to my entire design journey.
We talked a little bit about your values, and we just hosted a show on Monday with Dr. Risa Riger, as we do each and every Monday. And we talked about the intersectionality of values and joy. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to share with us, what do you value, and how is that, as you've evolved in your own career, how has that shifted, if at all?
Well, yes, I think especially in a career journey, in building a path, it's always challenging. It's never linear. The road is always bumpy, and so what helps you go through those bumps, it's your values. It's when you know who you are, then you can project yourself in who you want to be, and you can build who you want to be. And you can never jump too fast in trying to decide who you want to be without really exploring what your values are. Because the more successful you get, and the more also the more you get in risks, because success comes with constant risk, the more you're exposed to questioning yourself and doubting and doubting, being doubted. And so in those moments, you need to think of like, what are my 5, 6 values, and am I still within those values? So my values were always, I need to create impact. I need to give something. I need to give a value to others. And when you choose that as a value, it builds your confidence tremendously, because when you're giving value to others, that gives value to your confidence. It doesn't feed your ego. It feeds your self-esteem, and it feels your purpose. And no matter how much you're struggling and things are dark, you know that you're there for a reason, and that you're there for others. And so it helps you go through that dark time. So definitely giving back, pleasure. I talked about it yesterday. Pleasure is so important. If you are not enjoying every single moment of your life and of your day, and pleasure doesn't come just like through food or through a certain activity, or it needs to come through your intellectual conversations, your intellectual creativity, and so then, as busy as you can get, and we talk also about being burnout, and honestly, for my mom, for like my parents and parents and people around me who care about me, they're always scared, like that I burn out. I was always on planes, I was traveling, I was a mom, and I was like doing these different things, and but I was never close to that because I was really having pleasure all over my day doing every single thing.
I love so many things about what you just said in the sense of feeding the ego versus feeding your confidence and staying true to what you value for yourself and for those around you in the sense of how you want to create a different world. And also finding pleasure in the little moments and times. And I think that many of us are using that right now as a step back to say, okay, so we may not be traveling the world, we may not be going on vacations, we may not be dining at restaurants that we love and adore, but what are the little everyday moments and times that we can actually find joy and pleasure to be able to nourish our soul and to keep feeling grounded and positive and healthy, particularly during this moment in time. Nessa, it's interesting because we also talk a lot about identity at Mayshad and the complex nature by which we identify roles for ourselves. And you wear so many different hats on a daily basis, and as do many of us that are a part of the Mayshad ecosystem. And that definitely affects and impacts how we think about inclusion, both professionally and personally, particularly as we move forward into the new world, as we go back to work physically, as we think about the work that we do as leaders and as managers and as business owners, and as we stay fresh and relevant and current in our own careers. How do you think, your own sense of identity plays into right now in particular? How do we show up as leaders, and how should it, in the sense of like if we're finding obstacles for ourselves in that place?
I think identity is such a big problem when we lose identity, we lose all sense of values. And I have seen that in other parts of the world that suffer from terrorism, that suffer from violence, that suffer from like big violence, not only violence for anger, but violence because all values are lost. And that happens with migrations of populations, and this has always happened. There was always the human beings were nomads, and they were populations were migrating for different reasons. They would have the droughts, they would have like a pandemic, and back then you could move a little and not find like not catch a flight, but like go on your camels a little further with your community, and then like find solutions there in a safe place. So there was always reason to migrate, but you used to migrate within a community, so you didn't lose your sense of identity. And with modernization, globalization, there were the positive things that you can just like catch a flight and be in another culture in no time. But a lot of people have lost their values, their identity. They don't know who they are, what is their religion, what is their language. They don't speak the language of their parents, of their grandparents anymore. And as youth growing up, we young people have that strength to just engage in anything. And so they will engage in the right things if they have the right opportunities, but they will also engage without a lot of knowledge into any sorts of movements and so and ideologies. And that's where, when you don't have a strong sense of identity, when you're leading your kids, your children, you're leading younger generations, you won't be able, like, you'll face a lot of problems at a certain age where you might lose them because they will just engage in the wrong things. So I think at Mayshad, with what we do with younger generations, with the nonprofit and the for-profit, it was always very important for me to transmit that sense of identity.
Nessa, I think it's fascinating because as we think about identity, particularly in this moment in time, and we think about the complex nature of all the isms that we as a country experience collectively and then also individually, there's so much happening in this country right now as it pertains to what reared its head from the pandemic and the learning lessons from that in the sense of the class and racial disparities. And we see protesters marching on the street around the world now in support of racial equality in the United States. How does that, as someone who is newer to New York than many of us, how does that impact what you see, your experience with being in the United States, and particularly in New York City, living in Manhattan and working in Manhattan? How has that changed your viewpoint, if at all, in the sense of what's happening right now in the United States?
Sure. Well, I think it's very interesting, to have an external eye on the situation. And again, I've always been interested in civilizations and understanding history of countries in different continents. And America is lucky to still be a very young country. And so I'm very positive about it. When I see that the change, I believe that the change can be made, but the change needs to be made because we are in a time with social media, and all the technology tools that we have, where we cannot movement, good one and bad ones can go very fast. And when there is an exasperation of population, it can really, 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 like, go very fast into dark times in no time. And we have seen it in the Arab Spring, in Middle East. We have seen it just with the yellow vest last year in Paris. And so I think that what is happening today is legitimate. I think that there needs to be a change into recognizing the inequalities that are happening between Black and white populations in this country. I think that it's linked to the histories of the country, so it's very easily traceable. And when you can trace an issue to its roots, then you can fix it. And so that's a positive thing.
I appreciate that, Nessa. Thank you for that insight as an outsider. Although I think we all think of you as an insider now. I want to go back to one of the things that we were talking about earlier in the sense of risk taking and using your core values as an opportunity to find strength within that then helps you take on the world. And so many of us right now are going through periods of, like we said, deep reflection, where we may be reinventing, we may be pivoting, we may be thinking about risks very differently. And really, honestly, a moment of time where a lot of people aren't taking risks, right? Like, we're still wearing masks for the most part, we're wearing gloves, we're really, self-censoring our physical behaviors in the hopes of staying safe and secure. And then on the other hand, there's this dichotomy happening where many of us are also intellectually and emotionally using this time to really step back and think about who we are, who we want to have in our worlds, and how we want to become better, like whatever that means to us professionally and personally. Let's talk a bit about that kind of that weird moment in time that we're in, where there's such a kind of a disconnect in the sense of how we perceive risk and how we embrace it, and how can we embrace it differently from your perspective, Neza?
So it is a time that where we're all united in facing the same challenge. We're not facing it equally, not at all, but we are all touched by this challenging time. And so when something like a tsunami comes, like and hits everyone globally, I think it makes you realize that we all have an option to react to it, and a lot will depend on our strength to survive through it. And surviving is already the beginning of thriving. Okay. And so then you realize that yes, okay, your level of leadership, of confidence, of moral strength will help you uh, focus very fast on what can I do as an action to overcome it, rather than, oh my God, I'm shocked, what just happened. That you see, you receive the slap, the punch, and then it can take you a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, like or 6 months to just wake up and realize. And when we spoke to, and we were like really on the field, like speaking to the women from our network, the speakers and so on. And a lot of the successful ones said that this is a time where changes are happening, and you cannot just, like bury yourself under the bed sheets and say, okay, like, did it come out? Did they stop the confinement? Can I go back out? Because if you do that at a youth level, at a senior level, you will come out and you will find the world, you'll be completely disoriented because the world would have changed. The direction, the streets, like the codes that you're used to would have changed. So it is a time to be safely, physically safe, confined, but to be out there more than ever. To be out there and understanding who are my new friends, what is my network, what are, like what is happening out there, what is my value proposition, what are my peers doing, what are my competitors doing, what is my industry doing. And so it is very important to position yourself. And I had this conversation in my brain trust last Monday. I said, okay, my God, it's like I'm seeing September arriving tomorrow, and I need to rest during this time. And so all right, so we have 2 weeks from now to end of June where we need to be super clear about what is happening in our life over this summer, and we need to organize how do we want to brand ourselves, what do we want to achieve over this summer, and not to be too harsh on ourselves, because this is not a time to thrive. Surviving during this time is thriving. So, and when can I find time over these 6, 4, 8, 10 weeks until September? When can I find time to boost my immune system? Because we are going into a fall that is going to be very difficult health-wise, and we need to have rested, and we need to have to get stronger in our immune system, because that's our only way to protect ourselves from the virus now.
Nessa, I remember that the height of the pandemic, when we just started remote working, you said to the entire team, I want none of you to get sick. Do what you need to do to stay healthy. And you're so spot on. It's really about the balance between, exactly to your point, around surviving is thriving right now. And I think that for women, that's a hard message. It's a hard pill, literally a hard pill to swallow, because and we had literally conversations about this with so many different women from our ecosystem just this week, where there's a pressure that we put on ourselves as women to feel that we need to be perfect all the time. And actually had a conversation with my mentees this morning too, and we'll talk about the Mayshad Mentee program in a bit as well. But the thought that in order for us to speak up or raise our hand, or be considered for a promotion, or ask for a raise, or submit an application for a grant, or apply to whatever it is, there's an assumption and an internal pressure that we often put on ourselves to need to feel perfect before we even stick that toe in the water. I know we do a lot of work with the Mayshad community just around having those conversations where women can actually feel like they have a different voice to use, which was also the inspiration for the book that you wrote, Be Who You Want to Be. Let's talk a bit about that inspiration, and then also messages that you have that you deliver to women each and every day, just around, things like risk-taking and thriving right now doesn't have to be significant, but it's about taking care of yourself, staying healthy, staying positive, and finding those simple moments of joy.
Yes, I think this time is about preparing for September with the new us. It's not about the new world, it's not about the new reality. We hear about that. It's the new us. It's the new me. Who am I? Who is my company? Who are we? Who is my family? And so and I will also say something that this pandemic on a spiritual level also came and shook a lot of things that were in the process of changing, but there was a resistance to change. So definitely the businesses that thrived over this time are the digital businesses, technology, online shopping, all the things that were changing in consumer behavior, but there was a generation that was still resisting and that was still a client to those brands. And you had the brands that were so big that they just said, okay, if I do put a consortium of we're not changing, and I've heard big corporations, like leaguing with each other to not let that change happen, and the change to digital and the change, like to online. And these are the first ones that just crumbled for this pandemic, because the pandemic just took us to a reality that we need to, things are changing economically and on so many levels. So I think we were in a we were in movement. We're in movement. The world is in movement all the time. And you always need, what happened is that the cycles used to be longer and we made them shorter. We're the responsible one. We created globalization, we created technology, we created so many tools that just like shortened those cycles. And what was right and selling amazingly 5 years ago is no longer selling amazingly. So as an entrepreneur, as a leader, you either understand, and as a risk taker, that you need to wake up every day and not question the world, but question yourself and the value that you have to bring to the world. So this is the right time. If you just focus and totally accept what is happening and totally realize that if you cannot bring value to your business, to your customer today, as we are in confinement, then it's not going to happen after. And what can I bring today to my customers, to the world, and in a more relaxed way, then I will be bringing even more. So yes, so I think if you succeed that, you'll get out of this strong, prepared, rested. You need to rest as well, because September is, it's going to be like a reorganization of the world, of industries, and so you want to be, you want to be ready to get to the top, and there are a lot of opportunities. So.
And also, Nessa, to your point, in a more sustainable way as well. And, what we're seeing is that, everything pertaining to ESG and SRI investing, social impact investing, those mutual funds are outperforming those that aren't as socially responsible. And so I think we're seeing this heightened moment in time where, with fewer cars on the road, with the changes that are happening in the sense of people actually wanting to spend money with companies that do, going back to that conversation about values, who really reflect their own values themselves as human beings, and what is it going to take to really change how we think about things like pandemics and the interrelationship between global warming and pandemics and civil and human rights. There's all that intersectionality happening right now too, where I think it's really causing a lot to bubble, where, you know, everyone's going to be thinking about sustainability and giving back in different ways. And taking our conversation back to, as we think about all things related to diversity, equity, inclusion, you know, what is in your ideal world in 5 to 10 years, maybe not even 10 years, maybe just 5 years, how do you envision Mayshad being at the forefront of that movement as it pertains to all things related to sustainability and companies that are really doing the right thing?
Sure. For a moment, I thought you were going to ask me how I see the world in 5 years, and I was projecting. Now,
we can talk about that too.
You know, it's in my hands, and I'm surrounded by amazing people. So I know where Mayshad is going to be there. It's, you know, the continuity of what we're doing every day. It's creating an ecosystem that really seeds, nurtures, and launches and develops that beauty in people's minds, and giving them that ability to help each other, make business with each other, go as women and give back to society, because I really feel that the hope and the change of society is going to come from women, because they are the mothers of next generations and from the next generation. So where we're going to be with Mayshad, it's the continuity of this. It's just scaling in size in terms of impact. Now I'm going to take the other question of where the world is going to be in 5 years. And I think that what's beautiful about these times is that we don't have choices anymore. It's like the world is really twisting our hands to think sustainability and to think equality. And it has been, we've seen it in consumers' behavior over the past 10, 15 years. We've seen it in talent retentions. The new talents want to choose between a company that does bad and a company that does good. And they understand that this is my talent. I can give it to whomever I want. I'll get a salary in both cases. So I want to make that deal with this company, with the good company. And as consumer, also we understood that with our money, we can choose to invest. We are investors when we buy something, to invest in good companies. So I really see also the world and all companies restructuring into making that shift of strong Department of Diversity and Inclusion and completely like reviewing and seeing, you know, like their impact.
It's interesting, Nessa, what you just said around, you know, when you spend, you invest, right? And so even when you think about, you know, the groceries that you buy for yourself and your family, you're making an investment in your health, in your family's health. When you spend money in the sense of, you know, attending a conference or buying a networking membership or buying a book on Amazon, you're making an investment in your own intellectual property, in your mind, right? And I think it's interesting in this moment in time how, you know, we as consumers, you're absolutely right. And we see, you know, how many big box retail brands are really struggling right now because they weren't able to stay at the forefront of understanding, even before COVID, but understanding really truly how consumer preferences were changing. And there's going to be mass transformation in so many different spaces. But let's talk a little bit about the human element in all of this too, and the fact that, you know, many really great leaders hire talent below them that brings so much incredible value and worth and knowledge and attitude and values to the table, right? And so we often say that, you know, you as a leader are only as good as the people that work under you, right? Because they are there to build equity in the company and really believe in the mission and dedicate their heart and their souls to it. And do you think this is a moment in time where companies will also reevaluate, of course, you know, their own teams and their own structures, and how, particularly for women, does this impact our opportunities to be able to build greater value for companies, no matter if we own our own companies or work for others as well?
Sure. You know, John, when we're talking about the entire unemployment that is happening, it's just that the job positions are shifting. Okay, it's not that the corporate world and the business world doesn't need anymore 40 million people. You know, as far as I know, COVID didn't build we didn't build robots over, we didn't build 40 million robots over the past 2 months. So what is happening is there is a shift, and but with this shift, so the first thing is to lay off people, but the second thing are going to be to hire new people and to hire people that bring solutions. So be the one who carries that solution. And that's why use this time to repackage yourself and to think what that solution is. And that solution is just the solution of today in your industry. Okay? Don't think we are, we have a lot of uncertainties, but if you just realize that instead of trying to guess the future, just figure out the present. And I'm not inventing anything. I mean, all the books talk about the value of the present moment and things like that. Well, I guess in business as well, it's like that. If you come up with the solution of who you are, what you could bring to a company right now, then you will be of value. So yes, I hope I answered your question. And to the companies, I think companies will have to re-question a lot of things, and they're already doing it by laying off people. They're laying off the people that they don't need anymore at this stage because they need to shift everything inside, and they will continue laying off also people that don't represent those new values that they want to communicate. So I think yes, coming forward as I am a brand myself as a being, and I am bringing you that image of values and solution to your company. Anyone would like to hire and retain people like that.
Let's talk a little bit about the theme of personal branding is so popular here in the States. And in fact, it's before now maybe a bit even overused in the sense of developing your own personal brand. And we heard a lot about, so many different opportunities to learn how to do that. In this digital age that's here and now, in the way in which you and I are having this conversation, we haven't seen each other for almost 3 months now. As with all of the team members, which I know that we miss so many of all of our members in our ecosystem as well. But, wondering from your perspective, given the fact that you're an incredible brand, you've launched incredible companies, and now we're in this digital world where everything we do lives in the flat world. How does that impact the way in which you view and value human communication? And for those of us that need to be fully engaged in creating and sustaining our own personal brands, what advice do you have for us now, given the fact that in the 3D world together anymore?
Yes. So, yes, Jan, if I'm talking to the younger generation, I will tell them keep using your social media seriously, not just for the fun part, but start shaping who you are. And if I'm talking to a more senior generation, it's don't get discouraged about using social media. And today I had a conversation with my daughter who's been using TikTok. She's turning 13 and she's that next generation. And TikTok is all about dancing in front of a camera. And it was healing during those times of the pandemic where people were locked at home. It just exploded. And so and I say to I was not part of the dancers, like in TikTok, and she was trying to pull me there. And you have to know, as with my million plus followers on social media, I'm someone who resisted social media. I got into social media because I'm a marketer that knows how to brand, my vision, and I'm a photographer. And so using social media to make friends or for the fun part of it was never my thing. But when you have a business, and you all listening to us have a business, and whether as a consultant or an executive or an entrepreneur, you need to communicate. And so back to my conversation this morning with my daughter is I am exploring, understanding how that tool can become aligned to what we do with our brand, which is empowering women. How can I empower women through TikTok? Because when it's like a channel that opens, it's a distribution channel. And when a distribution channel opens and speak to millions and billions of people, you can't just ignore it and be like, duh, that's not for me. No, not as someone who's building yourself as a brand. So always find so yeah, don't get lazy about doing it. There is no miracle. There is no content that you're gonna post that will just get picked up and with the buzz. It's about consistency, but it's mainly about knowing what is it that I want to communicate. What is my brand? I am an expert in what, and how can I make this expertise be communicated under a diversity of content? Because if I just post a quote every day, I become boring. If I just post, like one type of content, I become predictable. So you need to diversify the content, but reinforcing the same expertise.
Nessa, I love what you just said, because it's really about diversification, right? And trying and experimenting and feel comfortable with taking the risk to experiment, much like how we diversify investment portfolios, right? It's also diversifying your approach to how you think about your own brand as well, right?
Totally, Jan, because if you want to be heard by a large amount of people, you need to be able to speak to them with different languages, with different tools. And not everyone, some people are more visual, some people are more vocal. And so you need to be able to create a diversified way to speak to them, but just stay consistent into that effort and make it fun. And in your social media, you are the editor. It's like being the editor of a magazine. Well, there is a certain consistency. You know where to find what in a magazine, but there is a content that changes from month to month, from season to season. Somehow it kind of like repeats, like the cycle repeats, but with a little differentiation. But if you were to buy a magazine and then one day you find it, the other day you don't find it, and you don't know when it comes out, you won't be that reader of the magazine.
Such a good point. Nessa, talk to us about the inspiration behind us launching the mentorship program that we have running this summer.
So very proud of it, and the Mentis program is something that we had from our offices in Paris and Morocco, and we used to receive students from Berkeley University, Boston University, NYU that would travel all the way to Morocco, and that would be working there in our offices. And an internship with us is never an internship. It's an incubator. I mean, you get out of there, you have worked on like different angles of launching a project, of communicating. You get through that all that inspiration that you're communicating to others to get inspired yourself. And so it was always we always had a problem with the internship name, and we wanted something more stronger, like a boot camp, and so there was that experience, and then there was the experience of being a co-teacher at Emory University, creating the Mayshad chapter at Emory University, going there every quarter to give a workshop. And then the final one was having to write down an entire syllabus for a session under the Be Who You Want to Be program at City College, which I did between last September to January. Yes, so that was yes, so when we decided to launch the incubator, it was like a little mix of all that and turning it into really taking those students that are in education and giving them the tools to become young professionals. And the sooner they start thinking and defining their career path, the sooner they will get there. So that's what it is. And I just love seeing that cross generational learning as well.
So Nessa, we have a surprise for you. We actually have questions from our mentees, and we're moving into the Q&A section right now. So the mentees under the content team worked really hard to put together a whole list of questions for you. And we'll get to some of them today, and then we'll do this as an ongoing series as well, which we're thrilled by. Are you ready? Okay. How have you overcome, or how did you overcome your greatest career challenge to date?
The how I overcame it, I definitely overcame it with conviction. The conviction that what I'm doing is I am fit for doing it. I am in a space where I can create impact, and I don't see myself doing something else. So so really that conviction that you're doing the right thing, that this is who you are, that you don't have to get out of yourself to sell a product, when the product like really comes from your conviction that you're creating impact, that you're serving others, that you have impact on others, then yes, that's how I overcame every single challenge. And they come under different forms, they come, they hide, and you're like, okay, I'm done with this type of challenge, I promise I'll never hit this type of walls. And then the wall like come to the right side, and and they're a different shape. So the challenges are really part of the entrepreneurial journey. Anyone that will tell you about an amazingly successful life had to hit it. It's that person that could stand up faster than others, and that could overcome, not by being stubborn, but just by being convinced that there is a solution.
How would you describe your approach to motherhood, and what would your daughters say about your strengths and your opportunities for growth?
Okay. My approach to motherhood, this is like a big chapter where I wanted to speak over and over and over to mothers, because motherhood comes with guilt. It comes in the package. It's like you give birth and you're like guilty, like all the time, of like what can happen to that child. Like I'm like, oh, I went to the restroom, I came back, oh, she's crying, why this, that. But unfortunately, that guilt is reinforced by other characters in your life that want to use that guilt to not let you thrive as a woman. And then that guilt grows, that a lot of women have shifted from their dreams for motherhood. So I made them young, and I wanted them to grow up with me. I made them when I was like still building myself and figuring out who I want to be. And I'm like, okay, come here, let's create a company, let's call it May and Shad, so that you understand that you're part of the deal. This is not mine, this is ours. And I always say my daughters are the first investors in Mayshad, because they have invested all their mommy time in this company, where they gave me the freedom to build it, to fight for it. And they're growing up to being like super cool kids. They're my friends. I love spending time with them. I love bringing them into projects to see, like what is the future, because they look at things in a more futuristic eye than we would. And I push them. I'm hard on them. I'm sure we would have like two different vision, because like they're like the two sides of me. They're like, it's like if I'm divided in two and each one is like one part. And I like to put them together because I'm like, okay, together you're gonna build some sort of balance. But I think that on the overall, uh, they are inspired to be part of an inspiring journey and to see the impact and to give that impact back themselves.
That's beautiful, Nessa. Tell us a bit about your inspiration behind the book, Be Who You Want to Be. Why did you write it, and who is it for?
So the Be Who You Want to Be slogans was something that came up very strong over and over. I put it in the handbags. I created bracelets with the hashtag Be Who You Want to Be. And every time I tried to think of other slogans, it was really that. That was the motto. Because I think that it's at the heart of success. People who succeed are people who figure out who they want to be. And it's such a hard, it's not an easy motto. It's not easy to know who you want to be. And so I wrote the book to help people find out, to get on that path. So when I was writing the book, of course, the first thing that you think, and for those who are struggling writing a book when they know that they have that book in their mind, two advisors. First of all, define your audience very clear. Who do you want to write it for? Of course, I want to write it for the world, but you need to choose someone and then the world will read it. And the second thing is just put many chapters that make sense and then compile them together, and that will make that amazing book. So I wanted my book to be super easy from 7 to 77 and to really be that simplification of what leadership is, because it came in September 2018, it came out. And it was at a time where you heard a lot about leadership, workshops, leadership. And the first chapter is leadership, a concept or reality. And when you hear a word over and over and people are like, duh, leadership, of course. And you're like, okay, I don't understand what leadership is. And you start like shying away and you feel like maybe I cannot access leadership because they seem to understand and I don't, because it became such like an easy word to use. And the truth is, no, it's not easy. Let's define what let's put it on the table. How do you implement it in your day-to-day life? How do you implement it when you're still trying to build yourself and figure out who you want to be? So yeah, so that's the book.
I love that. I love Be Who You Want to Be. It's so impactful on so many different levels. And I think in this moment in time now, such a good learning lesson for all of us. I love this next question, Nessa. Do you have a happy place? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, so in terms of location, first of all, I need to tell everyone that my happy place was New York for a long time. And I could have moved to New York anytime, but I chose to not move to New York because New York is a city, and today I talk to the mentees who are in different parts of America, and I see that New York is that dream. New York is that dream because New York is power. Don't put yourself in a powerful place if you don't have a powerful path to take, if you're not clear. That be who you want to be concept, don't come to New York to find yourself. Find yourself somewhere else and then come and achieve it. So 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 my happy place was New York, and I chose to move to New York until I decided to completely commit to the Mayshad network, to launching Join Mayshad, to focusing here in the US in empowering women. And so New York was my happy place and is still my happy place. But now also my other happy place, when you're in a city that is so urban, an island, as a matter of fact. I really see New York as an island. And when I came here as a citizen of the world, I said, yes, New York is so big for people, but I feel like a giant in an island, which is amazing in a positive way. So my happy place is nature, and it's a retreat place that we have in Morocco. It's called Jenna and Mayshad, and you can find it under the Mayshad Hospitality website. And Jan has been there.
Amazing.
And, so that's my happy place. That's the place where, I hear birds. I'm like completely disconnected. I'm in the middle of nature. Yet I have all the standards of comfort, luxury, Epicurean, pleasurable journey that I designed.
And so there's something, just speaking from my time there, there's something that feels so healing and grounding and spiritual about being there, right? And all inclusive in the sense of no matter who you are, what you believe, or how you empower women, and the extent to which you give back to the world, there's something that feels very peaceful. Like the overall serenity of it all is breathtaking.
It's really impressive that you used the inclusive word. And Jan, Morocco has a history, and it definitely, I traveled the world, and Morocco has its own energy. And I always say that it's because it's always been an inclusive place. It's a place that hosted the three religions very peacefully. It's a place that has protected its predominant, it's Muslim in its majority, but it has a Jewish community that was peacefully protected over the Holocaust. And so of course I think when people live and die in a space that included them, that energy stays. They leave their energy there. And so there are a lot of saints from all religions all over the country. And yes, that diversity and inclusion part is, plus we are in Africa, we are at the door. It's the only road that links Africa to Europe. And so you have all those influences. When there was the Ottoman Empire and a lot of countries were invaded, they stopped at Morocco. They couldn't invade Morocco. So there was never a history of big violence. And all this stays, like in the energy of a place.
And you definitely feel that in everything, every experience that we had when we were there with you. It's an incredible experience. And I encourage everyone when we're back to traveling globally to come on one of our Morocco retreats with us. It's a very special experience. Nessa, we have so many more questions for you, but I know that we're out of time, but we have one more that we'll touch upon today. I love this question too. What would you say today to your 16-year-old self?
Okay, so to my 16-year-old self. So also, I also talked about that with the mentees. I'm turning 38 this summer, and I was just saying how I wouldn't want to be 28 or 18 or go back in time, just because when you're someone who works so positively and with conviction and hard on yourself all the time, you just want to keep moving forward and not backward. And so yes, so if I was 16 today, definitely I would belong to a generation that has even more means. I would have started earlier. I had all these convictions in me at an early stage, but I did run out of my path of. I was an artist. I was very creative, and I was an artist, but I didn't know that I was an artist. And so I kind of like gave up on that at a moment where I went for a very conformist life, and then I came back to recreating that space, but with a stronger version of me. So be powerful. I mean, you have all the tools. Just be focused on what you want to advocate for, and just realize that you have more than us, even at our generation, because more tools, and because that young vibe where you can just give 24/7 to something that you believe in. So be aware of that strength that you have in you.
Thank you, Nessa. This has been so much fun. We should do this more often.
It is. And I'm so happy about this concept that you're launching with a question every week. That will
So to all of our viewers out there, we will be launching a digital editorial newsletter that will come to your inbox each and every week with inspirational thoughts and reflections from Nezha, in addition to content from our members and from our speakers. So please make sure that you check us out at joinmayshad.com. Thank you, Nezha. Thank you for being our rock star guest of honor today, and we'll see all of you next week. Please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out at joinmayshad.com. Contact Nezha and myself if you have any questions about membership. We have a lot of different opportunities for you to stay engaged with us and all of our different touch points that we offer to highly accomplished professional women each and every week. I'm Jen Rashidams, the Vice President of U.S. Development with Join Mayshad. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.